absolutely getting spoiled with all of these incredible players swinging by. So Joey Landreth was in town, and he was nice enough to stop by, talk about all kinds of stuff, gear, tone, playing. One of my favorite things about Joey's playing, he's a great slide player, he's a great guitarist, he's a great singer, but everything he plays sounds like music. And I think that is just the best trait to have as a guitarist and as a musician. So I really hope you guys enjoy this. Listen to Joey play, listen to him talk about stuff. So he has such a great outlook on music in general, so I really hope you guys dig this. Real quick shout out and thank you to the awesome people over at Sweetwater for sponsoring today's video. One of the things we talk about is Joey's new signature amp with the guys over at Revv, the Revv D25. And it is a killer sound. I'd never ran stereo before. Such a cool experience to hear it, and it's just an amazing, amazing pedal platform amp. So I recommend you guys check all that stuff out. And of course, thank you to Joey and Derek for coming by and even doing the video with me in the first place. And just get yourself a snack. You got a long nerdy guitar video headed your way. All right, let's get it. We're just gonna dive into it. Dude, first of all, thank you so much for coming all the way from Canada just to be here.
It's my distinct pleasure. When I was at the border, they were like, "What are you doing?" I was going to see Rob Baker. They're like, "Come on in."
Is long-haired guy?
Yeah. Long-haired guy, plays guitar.
A little weird?
Yeah.
Modern.
Yeah.
Know him.
But good, but weird. Yeah. So
he's here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude. I wanted to do a video with you for a long time. I love your playing, so much. And then, I have to ask right away, out of the gate, what is this guitar that I'm looking at?
Yeah, this is
cool.
This is Duesenberg, for those who aren't aware. And my brother and I, it's got to be going back 4 or 5 years now. Duesenberg has always been. We've always been kind of friends with them, and I've on and off over the last 15 years I've owned Duesenbergs. And at one point I started chatting with one of the guys, and they said, hey, can we send you some stuff to check out? And I was building a little home studio, and I didn't have a bass. I was like, I would love to check out one of your basses, just so that I have something to plunk around on, and a couple guitars. And so they sent me some things to try, and the bass, immediately my brother picked it up and was like, this is mine now. So he fell in love with this bass, and our sort of relationship sort of progressed. And then at some point, David had some thoughts for some tweaks to the bass, and I had some ideas for a guitar. So I just said, hey, could we do like a Brothers Landreth Alliance series sort of thing? And so there's a guitar and a bass. And
cool.
The story behind the guitar is like, my sort of number one guitar over the last handful of years has been a Sorokin Gold Top, and I love that thing. But I wanted a guitar that did everything that guitar won't do, and so I hit them with this idea. Is like, what if this was like the greatest hits of all my favorite slide guitar players? So the pickups are kind of where the heart of the idea of the instrument really is. So the bridge pickup is basically it's a humbucker, but it's made out of tele bobbin, so it's kind of wound to sound like a Telecaster bridge, but with a little extra, humbucker sort of vibe. The middle pickup is basically a Strat pickup, and the neck pickup is gold foil. So it's like Lowell George from Little Feat in the bridge pickup, Bonnie Raitt, and Ry Cooder. So there's kind of three big slide heroes,
and all pretty low output.
Fairly low output. This has got a little bit of jam, but Yeah, I mean, I can get. I live almost always on the bridge pickup.
Okay.
So the way that the controls work is, it's a 3-way. So you can have neck, and bridge, and then with these toggles, you can activate the middle pickup. So. And then you can tap the bridge pickup. Yeah. So it's kind of, I mean, I got enough dirt on there. You can't hear the chiminess of them and stuff. But
well, it's interesting you say that because I want to do it to one of my guitars is have where I can have the neck and the bridge split tone-wise now because I'm realizing so many guys I like that was kind of the secret sauce. So as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh look, Joey's got it there too.
Yeah, it's cool, and I we threw around a few different ideas about what the controls could do, and I wasn't immediately sold on it, but I love it. I've kind of gotten used to it, and there's just like sounds that I reach for all the time.
Yeah.
So, and these little switches are great. They're they're kind of irregular toggles, but they're inset into the pick guard, so they're kind of hard to accidentally bump, and yeah, it's cool. But yeah, and I mean everything else about it is basically a Duesenberg, other than it's set up for my lower tuning, but like all their great hardware. The Tremolo is amazing. Tuners are great. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that trim arm is interesting. The way, like, do you like them higher like that? Because it sticks out pretty straight.
Yeah, this is kind of the standard Duesenberg trim arm setup. So I didn't really tweak this at all. This is just sort of how it came from the factory. So yeah, I don't know. I can't really say what my preference is. It's just sort of how it is. I haven't even thought to kind of mess with it, to be honest.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stayed. I don't think I've heard you tune it yet.
No, I mean these bridges, they did, like, obviously it's a take, or it's kind of inspired by Bigsby, as you can clearly see. Mm-hmm. But they have, I'm not sure what they've done to their design, but it's super solid. Like, you can full on, dive bomb in a way you never could, and it comes right back.
So this is something, because you do a lot of, obviously you do your solo stuff, the bros, but you also do a lot of session work as well, don't you?
Yeah.
So is this kind of like your everything tool, like you're taking that with you if you only have one guitar, like? Yeah,
pretty much. I mean, I will always travel with 2 guitars nowadays, so, but this one is always in the gig bag, and probably one of my Sirokins would be in the gig bag, either the Junior or the humbucker guitar. But yeah, this thing gets a ton of airplay just because it has so many sounds in it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks awesome. Yeah. I've seen, because you do a podcast with Derek called The Golden Age,
yeah,
which I was going to talk about here in a second, but I noticed a telly that you've been playing on there.
Yeah.
What is that? Because that thing, with the snakehead.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, I love, it's such a cool throwback to like OG telecaster.
Totally. That's made by a company out of Argentina called Lumiere. And they're phenomenal. I have 2 of them. I have one with mini humbuckers, and then one that's more of a sort of traditional blackguard. I mean, so the story behind that guitar those guitars is that they built the Jim Campolongo signature telly. And so, I don't know if you're familiar with Jim, but he's like...
I'm not.
He's I'm not sure where he's from. I always knew him from being in New York City, but he's just like... He is like a telly man, as far as I can kind of explain it. He's just always playing a telecaster, and he milks every single piece of music out of those guitars that can be pulled out of them. And so when I saw that he'd done a signature guitar with those guys, I just started following them and checking out what they were doing and liking stuff. And so they sent me a note and said, hey, would you want to check out a guitar? And so it's, I said, I don't have a telly at all, really. Like, I don't have a straight ahead telly. So they said, well, we'll send you 2 guitars to check out, and you let us know which one you like. And I couldn't help myself. I wound up hanging on to both of them. But
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of were talking before we were rolling about how sometimes we get guitars and we're like, oh, these just aren't good, but those obviously were like special.
Super special. They're both built out of really old yellow pine. So I'm not sure exactly where they got the wood from, but it's like, you know, it was like felled and turned into lumber like 150 years ago or something.
Oh, cool.
So it's like super, super old wood that's really crazy resonant, and they just sound great immediately. So yeah, I'm really, really pumped on those guitars.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then you've got your board here.
Yes, sir.
And this is a real board. This is not the board that I moved out of the way for this one. It's over there in the corner in the shadows. Yeah. You know, we won't talk about that one.
No, listen. There's nothing wrong with your pedal board, Rob. It's great. I put this. This is a fairly quick build for me. Like normally, I do all my own pedal board builds, and normally I'm a lot more careful about the wiring and stuff. But I just wanted to put something together, you know, for this trip and for some gigs that I had around home. And a lot of times I'll use a switcher, like a MIDI switcher and stuff, and I wanted to do something that was a little simpler in terms of, you know, if I want to turn on a pedal, I just step on it.
Yeah.
You know, no programming necessary. So I've been on a really big Mike Landau kick.
Yeah.
And so there's some inspired by Mike sort of decisions on this board.
That's cool.
I was like, I discovered his Live 2000 record back in, like 2000 and, like right around when it came out, I think, must have been 2001, 2002, maybe a little later than that. And I've been obsessed with it ever since, but I picked it back up and just such a huge fan of his playing. So I brought my Octavia, put it back on the board, the Orion Chorus, the Univibe, and I go back and forth between swapping in an SD9 for one of the drive pedals on here.
Oh, okay. And you got a Halo on there too.
And I got a Halo. I just picked that up. The Halo and the Zoma and the Rotary, actually.
I have the Halo sitting on my desk over there.
Yeah.
And then what I really liked was the Halo Core. Have you ever played those?
I haven't checked that one out yet. But
It has like the Timmons Halo and a quarter note and all that kind of stuff. It's just like a scaled down
version of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big I really like to tinker with stuff, and so the idea of having a pedal, like a super small pedal, stereo with a fair amount of options, but the small footprint was really appealing to me.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm still using the foot switch, which basically doubles the size of it, but that's only because it was up here and I had space for it. So, but I've used an El Capistan for a long time, which I think is a fantastic pedal. But I've just been wanting something else, and I started checking out some of the videos on the Halo, and so I picked up these three pedals, and I am blown away with how good they are.
Yeah.
They like just sonically, they sound so good, and the Zoma reverb has kind of knocked me off my feet a little bit because it sounds like an expensive piece of outboard gear to me.
Yeah.
It's really fantastic. Everything, you know, Keeley has always made really great stuff, but I feel like this sort of round of designs are like pretty crazy.
I want to dive more into the tones here in just a second, but kind of the final piece of the puzzle to all of this, and I had heard you've built some of your own amps.
Yeah.
At home, right?
Yep.
And which has kind of all led to what is sitting beside you in stereo, which I've never set up before.
Stereophonic,
Check
baby.
it out.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah, I mean, so me building amps is actually kind of a separate thing from these. I just my wife and I contributed, but she had our second baby last year, and I was taking a bunch of time off of work, and I don't know why I thought I was going to have a bunch of extra time when we have a toddler and a newborn, but you know, I was just thinking about when my first daughter was born and it was like all we did was watch TV and hold a sleeping baby. Well, things are a lot different when you have a 4-year-old running around, or 3-year-old at that time. Anyway, but I bought a bunch of kit amps to build, and I got really, really into it, and then that turned into like, you know, sort of not designing, but sort of Frankensteining some circuits together, building my own circuit boards, things like that. Got really, really into that. And at some point there might be, I might sort of offer an amp that I make, but I don't know. I probably won't ever have time to do it. But the D25 JL edition was kind of an idea that Derek and I from Revv started throwing around a while back, and we've been really good buddies for a long time, and I've done a lot of stuff with and for Revv over the years, and they have done a lot with and for me. So Derek said, I kind of think it would be cool to do, like, take the D25, make some tweaks, make some changes, and sort of make it, a collaboration project. And so that's what it is. So we started with a stock D25, and I sort of A-B'd it against some of the amps that I use in the studio a lot, and kind of found, like, okay, if I take the D25 as the core sound and then sort of think about what I really love about the voicing of this amp or that amp, and see if I can incorporate that into the D25. And what kind of came out was an incredibly versatile, beautiful sounding little amp.
Well, so, and that kind of ties back into, like, you were talking about your guitar. You have to wear so many different hats for the type of player that you are. I'm sure solo, the way you approach tones and dialing stuff is different than you do with, the bros. Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, there's a whole session and, running a studio and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's a lot. So you have a really good, you have a lot of experience. I guess that's kind of the word I want, of, like, sure. Oh, this is what I need the amp to do. This is what it's not doing right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, anybody who's done a lot of playing, there's certain things that you learn pretty quickly as you're, especially touring and stuff. Guitar sounds that sound great on their own don't necessarily sound great with a band. Mm-hmm. So there's certain sacrifices, or not even sacrifices, but certain things that need to change. And mostly, for me as a guitar player, it's the bottom end. And it's not a lack of bottom end, but it's being able to shape where the bottom end is, and a lot of times something that when you plug into an amp that sounds amazing by itself and is huge sounding, well, as soon as you're on stage with a bass guitar and a kick drum, then all of that low end information starts to work against each other. So, like, trying to shift the EQ point where the bottom end sort of has its resonant peak and stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, I just sort of, like, I'd given the feedback, like, I think I'd like to tighten up the bottom end in a sort of specific way, and then, it was like, got the amp back and checked it out and was like, yeah, perfect. That's nice. Exactly it. So, and then I think what ended up happening with that also is sort of reshaping the bottom end. It pushed the mid-range forward a little bit more, which is also a really great asset.
For guitar for sure.
For guitar for sure. And again, it's like when you're playing by yourself, that more kind of scooped sound is certainly, if you're literally playing, like if you're playing a solo show or something like that, there's, again, you're kind of like leaving room for a vocal, so like a little less mid-range coming from the guitar leaves room for the vocal. Like if you, like me, I sing and play. So, it's like things like that, like just like finding places to put everything, and considering those things. So if that's sort of the experience thing you're talking about. I think it's just like playing enough shows where somebody's going like, yeah, your guitar was like super loud and I couldn't hear it. It's like, great.
That's just what I was going for.
Yeah, exactly. So you pick up little tips and tricks as you go. So yeah, we tried to incorporate some of that with these amps, but all the while, like, sort of keeping the heart of it being, what Revv sort of made, what Dan sort of envisioned for this model, right, when he designed it, and keeping that intact, and then all the extra features that are really brilliant. I mean, little things that I changed were, I changed these switches from push buttons to toggle switches, and I wanted a more traditional gem light or jewel light, sorry. Yeah. Those kind of things were little sort of personal touches. But yeah.
And I always find that stuff interesting because you obviously probably had a reason. Is it just simply so you're not bumping them, like?
With the switches? I just could never remember which was on and off.
See, I like, yeah.
You know,
I love
like
stuff like that.
Is in on, or is that engaged or off? Which one is it? And so it was always like, well, when it's up, it's on. When it's down, it's off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we're running stereo right now, like we were just talking about. So you've got 2 D25s, but we're running direct. So there's no mics or anything needed for the way that we're running, and it sounds awesome. Can we hear just the kind of, I guess, like the dry tone that we have right now?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's got enough grit on it where it. I mean, does yours have more distortion to it than the other one?
No, it's kind of the same. I am pushing it a little bit with the Kingsley pedal.
Oh, okay.
And that pedal is basically always on for me.
I got you.
So it doesn't matter what I'm plugging into. I'm always pushing things a little harder. And I'll run the amps, like if I take this off, it's fairly clean.
Yeah.
So it's just hitting it a little harder and adding a little bit of gain.
So it just takes pedals really, really well.
Amazingly well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It, like, you can go direct, like, or straight into it and crank the gain knob, and there's a gain boost as well. And it's got a fair amount of sort of drive on tap, but you run anything into it to push it a bit harder, and it just opens all the way up. It's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I did have a question about, because what are you tuned to right now?
This guitar's tuned to open C, so C, G, C, E, G, C, or 151-351.
So, and I don't know if this would affect anything at all, but do you dial tones differently for like a standard tuned guitar, or versus an open tune? Like, does it change anything for you?
I won't change anything for the tuning necessarily, but because I basically always play an open tuning, whether it's C, D, or E, and I actually even have a short scale guitar tuned up to open F.
Ooh.
It just feels better there than so it's tuned up a half step from E. I will change things slightly for guitars that are tuned higher. Versus, or more likely, I will change the tone for the lower tuned guitars. I'll cut a little more of the bottom end and push some more of the mid frequencies, because otherwise it can get pretty floppy. Like this is a fairly low note. It's a half step above where sort of your standard baritone tuning starts.
Wow.
So if you're not careful, it can get pretty muddy pretty quickly. And also my brother likes a really quite big bass sound, so he gets grumpy if we're competing for space. Yeah, he's like, get off my lawn, mother. So that's definitely something that I'll tweak between the amps and then the Kingsley pedal as well. I can do a little extra tone sculpting there too.
Okay, so are you running like a hybrid set of strings for this?
Well, right now it is, yeah, because I decided to put flats on this guitar.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I go back and forth between absolutely loving flats and absolutely hating them. But right now I'm just at the tail end of loving them, so I'm probably going to go back to round ones. But I use string joist strings, so I put together a custom set. I've been working with those guys for a long, long time, and we've been sort of fine-tuning my string set for a long time. So
okay.
Yeah, so this, I think the top string is 19.
Wow.
22, yeah, it's big. 20, I think this is 24, 34, 46, and 60. No, this is actually thinner. This is 58.
Wow,
but it's tuned down.
Yeah,
but
still.
When I first started doing this though, dude, it was 19 to 68. It was a standard baritone set, but I just beefed up the high.
Wow.
Because the shorter scale, like a baritone set of strings on a regular scale length guitar, they sound big, and they are. But it's not as crazy as you would think.
Yeah.
Like you'd probably pick it up and go, okay, yeah, feels like somebody plays slide guitar on this guitar, but it's not like, it's not impossible to it's not fun. Like, I don't want to be doing that all night.
You're not having a good time.
No, not at all. But you can bend some notes every now and then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so, and the flat wound thing amazes me because I've never played a guitar with flat wounds on it before.
Oh, really?
But how does that vary your slide? Because I want to talk about your slides here in a second, too. Because you use your slide on your pinky.
Yeah.
Which, it seems like I see more people use it on their ring finger.
Mm-hmm. I just, like, my sort of first slide heroes, I mean, other than Bonnie Raitt, Ry Cooder, Lowell George, Sonny Landreth, all these guys played on their pinky finger. So I just played on my pinky finger because that's what I was seeing.
Yeah.
Bonnie uses her middle finger, which is crazy.
Whoa.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, people always ask me which finger should I use. It's whatever is most comfortable, you know, because there's this dude in Australia, Brett Garson. Do you know Brett Garson?
Oh, yeah.
When he plays slide, he plays it on his index finger, which is so backwards, but when he plays slide, it's like incredible.
Kamikaze,
yeah. So just, you know, it's whatever works for you.
Yeah.
But that's where I settled. Yeah.
And what kind of slide do you use?
I use the slides that I use are made by a company out of Spokane, Washington called the Rock Slide.
Oh, I've heard of it. Okay.
Yeah. And actually, the very first time I used one of their slides was probably almost 20 years ago now, here in Nashville.
Oh.
When the old Groons was still
in the old,
like, was it on Broadway or somewhere down?
It was down.
It was downtown. I walked in there one day. I was on it. I had a day off, and I walked in and I found that slide, and then I lost it. And I emailed Danny from Rock Slide, and I was like, I live in Winnipeg. The nearest Rock Slide dealer is 1,800 miles, 2,600 kilometers west, or 2,400 kilometers east. Like, I'll pay you whatever if you just ship me some slides, and he did, and then we just I sent him our CD, the Brothers Landreth our first CD. I sent it to him, and like 6 months later he called me and was like, dude, I'm so sorry, I just listened to your record and I really like it. Can I send you some more slides? I was like, hell yeah. So he was the first person to kind of like get on board with the bros.
Oh, that's cool.
And sort of offer some support with gear. And so I've been using his slides for probably like damn near 20 years.
Really?
Now.
Oh, I have one right over there on the desk.
Oh, wicked.
Monitor.
Yeah.
I think Miles Kennedy uses those too.
Oh yeah.
I think that's who I heard talk about it, and I was like, well, it's good enough for mine.
Yeah, totally. They just like they've made really thoughtful changes to the sort of the traditional slide sort of design that improve the thing. And when I first put a Rock Slide on, I looked at it and thought, oh, what is this gimmicky shit, you know? And then but I put it on and was like, oh, it actually makes playing slide easier.
It's the angle that was what made a big difference for me. Was I have a glass one.
This bevel thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was such a big deal.
And it's like, I mean, the number one thing for me is the fit, like having it not flop around. Some people are really comfortable having like a larger, oversized slide. I'm not. So having it be tight, and then being, you know, because with a normal slide, like if you flip this around where there's no, you can't really close. Like, you can't really close your hand all the way, whereas when, you know, it's... I mean, you can, but it hurts. But this is, you know, it's perfect. So, I don't know, you just get way more... you have way more access to your full hand, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and then the other thing is that it's slightly weighted at the end. So it encourages your vibrato a little bit.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and is it steel? Is that what you're using?
The ones that I normally, this is a chrome plated one. I normally just use standard brass.
I was going to say, is it brass?
Yeah, brass. But I think we're going to do a run of copper plated ones. They look really cool.
Oh, that's cool. And never glass? You ever?
No, I mean, I like a lot of my favorite slide players do use glass. Mm-hmm. I just something happened when I started using the brass slide, and I just like. It just really, I really connected with it. So, but again, it's like I think that's a personal preference thing. I do use glass slides often on sessions when people are getting bothered by the noise, because a metal slide will generate a little more sort of that rattle kind of sound. But the flat wounds also help with that. That's
what I was going to ask. Is that kind of the advantage of the flat wounds? Like I would assume they'd be quieter. They're
a bit quieter, and they're a little mellower, and you get more fundamental of the string, like less of those overtones. So why is that a benefit? I don't know, but like particularly like if I play up the neck and kind of go for more of a sort of pedal steel like tone. I don't know. There's just something about it that's kind of cool, and it's fun to play slide on flat one strings.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird to play like, you don't get any of the sort of tactile response.
So not for Motley Crue?
Maybe not so much for crew tunes, but in a pinch it can be done. I don't know if you hit it hard enough, it works. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I noticed you're doing a lot with your volume pedal.
Yeah.
Especially with that kind of stuff. Is that something you've always been
off and on?
Volume pedal? Also not like a constant? Not
a constant thing. It's one of those things, like if it's there, I will do it. Mm-hmm. If it's not there, I don't like replace it with a volume knob. I just kind of like, if it's there, I'll mess with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's certain things that I really, really like to have. I like to have slap delay. I like to have reverb. And I like, personally, I like to run my sort of gain sounds like higher than your average bear. Like whenever I do, almost without exception, when I'm on sessions, people are always asking, "Hey, can we just turn the gain down a little bit?" Yeah, sure. Yeah, but it's just like for my own sort of the way that I like to hear the guitar, I like a little more gain. So I'll usually reach for some kind of overdrive pedal that is responsive to your volume knob, so I can clean things up if and when I need to. But when things are wide open, it's pretty good junk.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
but other than that, like everything else is bonus. I have a compressor on the board, which I don't often use. It's only really if I kind of want to go for either that sort of steely sound, mm-hmm. With some extra sustain, or like the sort of little feet sound. The Octavia is. There's times when I won't step on it for weeks, and then
really,
and then there's gigs where it's like.
How do you have that one dialed? I love the sound of those.
Yeah. I have it dialed where the gain... My daughter decorated my pedal board with her stickers.
I was like, is that the way those always are?
No. This is a new thing.
It's cool.
I kind of love it. She went through the studio, and like I have like a couple 1176s and some LA2As, and she like traced all the lines with these like diamond stickers, and I love it. I'm super into it.
No, it's cool.
So you can't see where the gain knob on the Octavia set, but the gain on this pedal is called boost, is all the way down, and then the volume, I sort of like will turn it up as loud as I can kind of get away with. Might be a little hot for us right now, but that's kind of how I usually set it. But then I'll bring the volume knob back quite a bit.
Well, I think something I've been noticing in your playing that I think is really interesting. I love your bends, because the way you fall out of them is almost like a slide, even whenever you're
cool.
not. It's really interesting watching the way that you're doing your bends. I'm like, it almost sounds like you're pre-bending sometimes, and
I love that,
falling out of it.
I definitely don't think about that consciously, and if anything, I'm a little self-conscious of my bending, because I spend more time sort of bending with the slide. So when I bend with my fingers, I'm like, I wonder if anybody notices this sounds like your stepdad. You know what I mean? But
yeah, see, like that
Yeah.
as soon as you did that.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, it's cool. Like, and I kept noticing you were doing that. And I'm like, I love little things like that inside of someone's playing. Well, and I mean, you sing and all that stuff, so you tend to have a very melodic, vocalish, like a vibrato on guitar and all that kind of stuff. So,
oh well, thank you.
I just think that stuff's really fascinating.
Thanks. I work super hard on my bands, and I appreciate you saying so. That's I appreciate it.
And I was gonna say because you used to tour with two. Did you have two D20s? Is that what you had?
Yep.
So it's always stereo. You're always running.
Yeah.
Amps, but always kind of pedal platform, and you're getting more of your gain and push tones.
Yeah.
Are aboard.
Almost always, yeah. I toured with a 2-Rock Bloomfield drive for a long time and got the drive from there. And I mean, that setup sounded incredible. But I don't know. I always kind of come back to getting my drive sounds from the board, even though there's like, there's certain sounds that just can't really be recreated, like a cranked Tweed. There's some great, like the Dan Drive Tweedy is a killer Tweed-inspired drive pedal, but when you plug into a real Tweed Deluxe, it's like, oh, that's a crazy sound.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just kind of always wind up coming back to getting my overdrive from pedals.
Yeah.
Couldn't really say why. In the studio, I will use amps a little more to get drive. I've got a cool 5E3 clone. As well as a Princeton clone, and I built a Brown Deluxe, and then I also built a Brown Princeton that I modded pretty heavily to kind of grind a little bit more. So those on our new record, I use those amps quite a bit for my dirty sounds.
Okay.
But when it comes to live, I think it's because I need, we're not in a situation where we're playing humongous venues where we can play as loud as we want. So I need to have more control over my stage volume. And also because I'm singing all night, it's not like the singer is coming up to me and being like, dude, you're killing me. It's like, I'm killing me. If I'm playing too loud, it's me. So that inner battle was lost.
Shut up, me. I'm playing guitar.
Shut the hell up, you. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that battle was lost a long time ago. So I find it easier to be able to control the stage volume from my pedal board. And there was a gig a long time ago, and we've always been very lucky. We've had two really great front of house guys over the last handful of years, and our original front of house guy is a guy named Sean McLean. And we were playing this tiny room, and I had to play super quiet, and I was like, man, I'm so bummed. My tone is just killing me. Yeah. And he was like, just trust me. I got your back. It sounds great out front. I was like, there's no way. And then I heard a video back, and I was like, fuck, it sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, at that moment, the show is more for the people than it is for me. Mm-hmm. I obviously have to have a good enough time to be able to put on a good show, but at the end of the day, from that moment forward, it was a lot easier for me to, like, turn down and know that it's still coming across, and got to be a grown-up.
Well, and I think it's cool because you're obviously a player who spent a lot of time with amps, with mics on amps.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, the fact that you're running direct out of all of this stuff into there using cab sim, I mean, obviously it's like you like that stuff, but you're accepting of kind of the way things are moving with technology and amps. And
yeah,
I mean, this would be like probably a pretty good rig that's not too big or heavy to take on the road with you. And
oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm looking forward to touring with this rig because I've toured with some pretty humongous rigs in the past. Definitely bigger than I should have for the size of rooms we're playing. Oh man, playing Eddie's Attic in Atlanta, like bringing my 2-Rock, the signature amp that I did with them last year, and then 2 extra combos. It was running wet, dry, wet. Pedalboard the size of that door at Eddie's Attic, which, like, if you cram people in there, it's like 80 people.
Oh,
and I was just like,
man.
What am I doing? And why am I doing it?
That's amazing. Do you know Rhett?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I just saw him not so long ago at East Side Bowl.
Yeah.
And, that's where I saw you guys last year.
Yeah. Right.
Bros, and they were playing, and Rhett had like 2 100-watt heads, and I was like, I love it. And 2 drummers, like, it was great. I'm like, dude, do it up.
Totally. I mean, it is fun, and there's a part of it, like, my brother's always like, don't not bring the stuff you want to bring just because it's going to be, heavy to bring the shit up some stairs or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think these D25s are the perfect sort of middle ground because they are plenty loud. Like they are quite loud, especially when you have two of them. Yeah. And they sound really awesome. And they, I'm actually kind of starting to I've been a 100-watt amp guy for a long time, and I'm really starting to lean a little more towards the smaller wattage amps. For that reason, you can just get them working harder a lot earlier, and the difference between the 100-watt head cooking and a 20-watt head cooking or a 20-watt amp cooking is pretty significantly different in terms of SPL.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say, does the headroom ever bother you dropping down?
Not really, because I'm kind of trying to recreate a lot of those sounds anyway. Right. And what ends up happening when I'm running 100 watts is the master volume is way down.
Right.
So it's like I'm kind of throttling this amp anyway, even though, the Joey Landreth 2-Rock, they did such a wicked job at keeping the master volume really usable basically all the way to off. But it was like, why am I carrying around all this sort of, all this engine if I'm never opening it up? So yeah, I started messing around with building amps, and then it was like, oh, I really like this little 18-watt combo that I can put in a backpack.
I mean, it's just a different vibe, a different feel, especially for your hand. I mean, it probably feels. Do you like more of like a loose? Because I've played your 2-Rock before.
Yeah.
And I'm not a good enough guitarist to play that amp.
Oh man, I don't.
You got it. It is such a fast It is quick.
Yeah.
And I'm a Marshall guy.
Yeah, sure.
So it's different, but how do you find stuff like that, like the attack on the amps with say these, the D25s?
Well, these are definitely, that was one of the other things that we tweaked, was just a little bit of the sort of initial transient. So these are a little bit quicker, sort of pick attack than the sort of standard D25. It's not a huge departure, but it's just ever so slightly a little more, a little less of that sort of onset compression. I don't know. I kind of don't really think about it too much, because I do like to switch things up quite a bit, and I like to, I've got over the last 20 years, I've sort of put together a pretty great little amp collection. It's not super vast, but I've got some great examples of some old Fender amps, and
nice.
And so I'm pretty used to playing something and going, okay, this is how it responds, so it kind of makes me play a little different, and I really like that. After a while, I often bring just different variants of pedals on the road, because about halfway through a tour, I'm kind of I'm starting to get sick of hearing this boost pedal, and I just it's nobody else is going to notice. The band might not even notice, but it's just going to, ever so slightly, the response of something is going to change. It's going to help keep me in the moment and keep me doing my job well.
That's cool.
So I like stuff like that, and I for that reason, I think you'd asked earlier, am I picky about stuff? For that reason, I'm not as picky as I once was.
Yeah.
I'm a little more welcome to things changing night by night.
I like that. That's cool. Well, I was going to ask, so what would be using your pedal board, or whatever tone you want?
Yeah.
What would two tones that are just your favorite, or you just find the most inspiring? You turn on the vibe or something like that, and you're it just makes me right as soon as I turn it on.
Well, you know what, honestly, it's not that exciting, but the slap delay is probably the thing that I miss the most when it's not there. Versus... I don't know. It's I don't think, maybe, I don't know if it's super noticeable to you in the room, but to me it's I just miss it right away. But
it fills it out differently.
Yeah, it does. I think I was really into Robin Ford when I was younger. I mean, still am, but he was like one of my early heroes. And he kind of always played with slap delay. Like, he played with reverb, but there was a lot of slap delay on sort of what he was doing.
Right.
At least for a period. And I was just like, I'm into that. So, I'm going to die on that hill.
I dig.
But... The long delays on the halo are, I've been finding really, really inspiring.
Oh, I love it.
The money shot.
The money shot. And look, you're on preset 1, aren't you?
Yep.
So that's the Halo. That's the Timmons thing, isn't it?
I probably. I think I changed it.
Did you change it? Oh.
Yeah. The Halo setting for me is on preset A or preset 2.
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay.
Yeah.
The 2.
Yeah. It's such a great sound.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get away from it once you get going on it.
Yeah. Yeah, they really did make something special with that thing.
And you mentioned Ry Cooder earlier.
Yeah.
And I love the cover that you did. I mean, it was 2017, 2018 maybe?
I Can't Win?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did I Can't Win.
Mm-hmm.
And, when did you start getting into Ry? Was that like very beginning, you know?
Not really. My dad was a musician, but was a working musician when we were kids. Mm-hmm. And he was like, probably the main records or main artists we listened to when we were growing up was like Little Feat, Ry Cooder, Bonnie Raitt, John Hyatt, Lyle Lovett, stuff like that. And it's kind of like the sound of my childhood. Whenever I hear music like that, I'm just kind of taken back. But when I was a kid, I was just like, this is just this weird shit my mom and dad like. Mm-hmm. It was like, I don't know, when people talk about like, my dad only listened to the Gypsy Kings or something. It was kind of like that for me. And then it wasn't until I heard a couple songs off of Get Rhythm in my sort of early mid-20s when I was like, whoa, what is that? Somebody's like, well, that's Ry Cooder. I was like, oh, I get it. So it took me a while to kind of clue into it and get it.
That's cool.
But he's like he's like, my top 3.
Yeah.
And his playing and his sound, and I've been fortunate enough to, I've never met him, but I know a lot of people who have interviewed him. Mm-hmm. And so I reached out to a friend and was like, hey, can you do you have any inside information about like what Ry used on these recordings, because the guitar sound is crazy. And he kind of like, apparently he's never happy with his guitar sound.
Oh.
And like, even though his guitar tones are some of my favorites, like, I don't know how familiar you are with the catalog, but there's on the record Get Rhythm, on the song Get Rhythm, it's like one of the greatest dirty slide tones I think that exists. Yeah,
I have to hear it now. I'm not super familiar with.
It's pretty nutty, man. Like, and I mean, his catalog is so vast, and there's so much to sift through, and there's like there are eras of things where it's like you won't hear a single like bit of guitar playing for like 10 years of Ry Cooder records, and then something comes out and it's just like, whoa, what is this? But apparently, like, he hated he hated that tone.
That tone?
And I was just like,
Really?
dude, I've been chasing that sound. I've bought every single iteration of this circuit that I could find, and it's nowhere near, probably because I'm not Ry Cooder and I never will be. But yeah, apparently he's like, yeah, no, he doesn't want to talk about that. I don't know.
Isn't it funny? Because like Eddie Van Halen's my favorite guitarist, and the Van Halen 1 sound, like that's everybody talks about that sound, and like Eddie was like not happy with that sound at all. He was like, I don't like that they panned the reverb all on one side. And he hated it.
Right.
And everyone's like, this is the most iconic guitar tone ever. So
that's so funny.
It's funny how.
It's refreshing though to know that like even, these people that I revere, their artistry, and I put it so high up that they're just like, nah.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's how I feel about my own music, and so that's a good sign. Maybe if there's a day when I'm like, there, I finally got it. It's probably the last day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like,
that's it. I guess I'm going back to landscaping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do a lot with different fuzz tones.
Mm.
And is that something you had to learn to control? Because like, it seems like slide would amplify everything. Like there could be more noise if you're not muting right and all that kind of stuff. So what are some of your favorite fuzz tones, or how did you go down that rabbit hole?
I always like on my record Whiskey, the interesting thing is like all the fuzz tones on that album, not that there's a lot, but like there's a couple pretty big fuzz tones on there, and that's all the green Sovtek Big Muff.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I used that same pedal for one stretch of dates for like 10 days, and I never used it again because it just didn't cut. Like even in a trio, it was just like I'd turn the pedal. It sounded awesome in soundcheck, and then I'd turn the pedal on and just be. So I started kind of gravitating toward fuzz faces and finding which flavor of fuzz face that I really liked. But the one thing that I will always say to folks about using a fuzz pedal is that you really do have to play like reactionarily to it. Mm-hmm. If you just are playing sort of your normal way and you step on a fuzz pedal that's pretty gainy, it's not going to translate. Your touch has to change. Mm-hmm. So like when I play the Octavia, it's a very different thing than when I play a fuzz face. But when I play the Octavia, my left hand changes significantly. So like if I play a lick like when I play the Octavia, I don't. It's hard to describe exactly how I'm changing.
More kind of like exaggerated movements.
A little more exaggerated movements, maybe, and I'm erring on the side of like sort of trying to maybe make my sort of hand tone a little brighter. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't even know if that translates, but that's just what I'm thinking about in my head.
Oh,
and
totally.
then the right hand, it gets bouncier. So like, if I play that same thing, I usually don't use a pick. I don't know why I am now. It really just changes your touch, and it has to. Like, and if I just played normally, I don't know, it sounds pretty cool too, actually, but it just does. You don't get everything out of it that you can.
Yeah, it sounds like more staccato-y.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's like because of the way that those sort of octave up overtones are being generated that you need to like allow a little more room, or I'm not sure really, but the point being that like play a note and change the way you touch the instrument and see what happens. And so things like fifths have some overtones in common, which is why they're clear. Right. But things like thirds and sevenths and more complex chords and stuff like that, they don't, and so it creates basically, long story short, creates noise. So you get a lot of extra unpleasant sounding distortion and stuff like that. So all that to say, it kind of means that you do, especially if you're using a gainier sound, you do kind of have to simplify what you're playing. Mm-hmm. And you have to, like, fifths work really well together. So if you're playing chords, you know, or if you want to play like a major 7 sound with a really gainy sound, maybe instead of playing it like, you know, I might play it as like a pair of fifths.
Okay, so you can control the amount of information you're putting out.
Yeah, and I may not play the root and the fifth. I may just play the third and the seventh, or, you know, same thing with a minor 7 chord. I don't know. It's pretty nerdy shit, but, you know, you can think about it really hard like that, or you can just use your ears and again, like, you know, respond to what the pedal is giving you back, and if something's not working, you know, try something else. I kind of like, I keep things pretty limited to single note lines, like I'll use fuzzes for soloing, or if I am playing chords, I'll keep it pretty simple, like root and fifth, maybe 1-5-1, that kind of thing.
Yeah, not like minor 7 flat 5 chord.
Exactly.
Throwing those out there.
Yeah, exactly.
As more kind of like information and you put more music out and all that stuff into the world, you have a lot more players who are looking up to you, younger players, you know, and what is something in your playing that you hope is translating to them?
Oh, what a cool question. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I'm so critical of my own playing most of the time, so it's kind of hard to say, like, I sure hope you take this away. The one thing I do really like about my own playing and is, like, for whatever reason, you know, there's lots of things that I'm self-conscious about as an artist and a singer, a songwriter, person, human. But one thing I'm not self-conscious about is, like, my creative decisions. And, like, if I see a comment and somebody goes, I don't like the way this guy plays, it doesn't bother me the same way that it might bother someone else. Like, I mean, sometimes it does, but I don't find myself questioning my creative decisions. And I hope if there's something that I could pass on to folks who like what I do, it would be that. It would be trust your gut, because your ideas, you know, your ideas are solely, uniquely your own, and that's what, you know, that's what's going to make you stand out as a player, not how many of my ideas you can learn.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, yeah, to put it another way, like, my favorite thing about my playing is not the choices that I make, but it's the freedom to make the choices, I think.
Yeah, see, I like that. That's a good answer for that one.
Really appreciate you, man.
Well,
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man, I'll link all your stuff down below, and I mean, the amp sounds phenomenal.
Thank you.
So I think it's cool. Anybody who wants it, I'll link down below. Alright, gang, I think that will be it. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys checking out the video. Dude, these interviews, I'm leaving them long. That's what you guys said you wanted. I'm not doing a whole lot of editing. So, hope you enjoyed the hang. Joey, Derek, thank you so much for coming by, doing the video at all. Sweetwater for sponsoring it. And like I said, thanks to you guys for watching it. And I will see you all next time. Bye, homies. Woo!